The Home Alone movies have been holiday classics for decades. From its 1990 original to its sequels, the series became synonymous with the holidays, an adventure filled with mischievous fun and timeless family entertainment. But over time, it felt like the magic disappeared. The later movies just didn't have the same charm. So, what went wrong? In 1990, Home Alone hit theaters and instantly became a favorite for a lot of people. Directed by Chris Columbus and written by John Hughes, the movie introduced us to Kevin McCallister, an 8-year-old who's accidentally left behind when his family heads out for Christmas vacation. While they're away, Kevin has to defend his home from two clumsy burglars, Harry and Marv, using a bunch of clever and hilarious traps. The movie had just the right mix of laughs, action, and heart, which is why it stuck with us for so long. The idea of a kid left home alone was so simple yet so fun to imagine. Kevin's crazy traps weren't just creative, they were unforgettable. They made you laugh, cringe, and cheer him on all at once. But beneath all the humor, there was a story about family, about missing the people you love and realizing how important they are, especially around the holidays. Of course, a lot of the movie's magic came from Macaulay Culkin. As Kevin, he was funny, clever, and relatable. He could make you laugh with his one-liners one minute and make you emotional in the next. His performance was so good it made Kevin an instant icon and turned Culkin into a star overnight. At the box office, Home Alone was a smash hit, earning over $476 million worldwide and becoming the biggest live-action comedy at the time. But more importantly, it became a holiday tradition. Families started watching it every year, and its quotes and scenes became part of pop culture. Even after all these years, it's still a go-to Christmas movie that never gets old. Two years after Home Alone became a holiday classic, its sequel, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, arrived in theaters. Making a follow-up to such a beloved movie was a bold move. Sequels often struggle to live up to the original, but somehow, this one pulled it off. The story takes Kevin McCallister out of his familiar suburban neighborhood and drops him into the middle of New York City. After another mix-up during holiday travel, Kevin ends up in the Big Apple while his family flies to Florida. To make things worse, Harry and Marv, now escaped from prison, are also in the city, and they're out for revenge. The plot felt familiar, Kevin outsmarting the two burglars with his trademark traps, but the change of setting made it feel fresh. New York, with its bright lights, iconic landmarks, and holiday magic, became the perfect backdrop for Kevin's wild adventures. The sequel brought back everything fans loved about the first movie. Kevin was still clever and independent, Harry and Marv were as hilariously clumsy as ever, and the slapstick humor was just as over the top. But it also gave us something new. Kevin's solo adventures around New York, like staying at the luxurious Plaza Hotel and befriending the mysterious pigeon lady in Central Park, added a sense of wonder and depth to the story. These moments weren't just fun. They showed Kevin growing up a little, learning about kindness and how to see the good in people. At its heart, Home Alone 2 had the same emotional pull as the original. It wasn't just about laughs and pranks. It was still a story about family and figuring out what really matters during the holidays. Macaulay Culkin was once again fantastic as Kevin, bringing the same charm and heart that made everyone fall in love with the character the first time around. The movie was another massive success, earning $358 million worldwide and cementing the Home Alone series as a holiday tradition. Sure, some critics said it felt too much like a repeat of the first movie, but fans didn't care. They loved the humor, the charm, and the holiday magic it delivered. By the time Home Alone 3 hit theaters in 1997, things had already started to feel a little different. Macaulay Culkin had grown up and stepped away from the role that made him a star. Instead of continuing Kevin's story, the third movie introduced a new protagonist, Alex Pruitt, played by Alex D. Linz, who finds himself in a situation similar to Kevin's. His house is targeted by criminals, and he has to defend it. But Home Alone 3 just didn't hit the same mark. While it followed a familiar formula, the magic of the first two films was missing. The humor felt forced, the stakes weren't as high, and the charm of the original Home Alone was nowhere to be found. Alex was fine as a new character, but he didn't have the same spark as Kevin. Fans who loved the first two movies couldn't help but feel the absence of Culkin's performance, and the movie just didn't resonate the way the originals did. Though it still made some money, grossing $79 million worldwide, it lacked the lasting impact of the first two movies. Things only got worse with Home Alone 4, Taking Back the House, a made-for-TV film that felt like a step backward. This time, the plot recycled even more of the old formula: a divorced family, new burglars, and a recast Kevin. But it didn't have the heart or charm that made the earlier films so memorable. Without the original cast or any of the magic that made the first movies work, it felt more like a cash grab than a real sequel. Critics and fans alike didn't hold back, and the film was widely hated, signaling a steep decline for the franchise. Then came Home Alone: The Holiday Heist, a made-for-TV movie that was just forgettable. With yet another new cast and an even less exciting story, it did nothing to reignite interest in the series. The jokes were tired, the plot was uninspired, and fans didn't care. By this point, the Home Alone franchise had clearly lost its way. What was once a beloved holiday tradition had become a series of sequels that no longer had anything fresh or meaningful to offer. After the success of Home Alone, the series struggled to recapture its magic. By the time Home Sweet Home Alone came to Disney Plus in 2021, it was clear the franchise had hit rock bottom. The story followed the same tired formula. A young boy is left home alone while burglars try to break in. While it may have sounded familiar, the execution felt stale and uninspired. The humor, which once felt fresh and clever, now seemed outdated. It was as if the movie was trying too hard to repeat what worked before, without understanding what made the original so special. The characters were bland and forgettable, with none of the charm or distinctiveness that made Kevin and the original burglars stand out. The traps, which had once been the highlight of the series, felt lazy and uninspired. There was no creative energy behind them, and it just didn't have the same fun, inventive spirit that made the original so memorable. Disney's attempt to introduce Home Alone to a new generation ended up falling flat. Home Sweet Home Alone relied too much on the same familiar beats without offering anything new or interesting in return. The result was a movie that felt more like a lifeless cash grab than a fresh, engaging story. So, what went wrong? How did a series that started with such promise and a timeless premise end up falling flat? A big part of the problem was the franchise's inability to evolve. The original Home Alone worked because it felt fresh, funny, and full of heart. It had that perfect balance of a relatable main character, clever pranks, and a genuine emotional core about family. But as time went on, the sequels tried to copy that magic without really understanding why the first film was so great. They focused too much on the surface, like the traps and the humor, without capturing the emotional depth that made the first movie stand out. Casting also played a big role in the franchise's downfall. Macaulay Culkin was irreplaceable as Kevin McCallister. His performance brought so much charm and relatability to the character, and when he wasn't there, the sequel started to feel empty. The new leads never quite filled that void, leaving the movies lacking the connection that made the original so memorable. As the franchise kept trying to rework the same formula, young kid, burglars, traps, it just didn't hit the same way anymore. By the time Home Sweet Home Alone came out in 2021, it felt like the world had moved on. In the end, Home Alone was a victim of its own success. It's nearly impossible to capture that same magic twice, let alone 3 or 4 times. Home Alone started off so strong, but eventually became a watered-down version of itself. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.